Well, hello, and welcome to the Spooky Ooky podcast. This is the first edition of the podcast talking about the paranormal, hosted by someone who doesn't believe in the paranormal. This podcast could contain strong language, and we do talk about dark things, so I recommend that young children don't listen. Or if you're a wuss, which, let's be honest, it's usually the case. This week, we are going to be talking about random stuff, because this is the first episode of the Spooky Ooky podcast, and I thought I'd go into a little detail about what my thoughts are on the paranormal and talk about some of the basic stuff and introduce myself into the world of the paranormal. So, yes, that is what we're going to be talking about. So I should start off with the first thing is a couple of years ago, I did a documentary during lockdown. Yes, I've gone there. During lockdown, I made a documentary where I ghost hunted around my house, and I announced to many 3 viewers that I was using a Ouija board during the production. Now, I did research onto the Ouija board beforehand because it was a documentary. So like a professional, I researched what I was doing, how to use one. I did the research, and it even came with an instruction manual, because it is a game for 6 and up. That's not even a joke. Google that. So I did the research, but still I got so much hate. I got threats to call the police. I had threats that my YouTube channel would be taken down. I had all that, and they said, "You're an absolute idiot. Your YouTube channel will get taken down. I'm not having it." That genuinely was what I got. The only negative thing that happened around the Ouija board, I will add, was the negativity that people said about the Ouija board. That's where the negativity comes from. It's not a stigma. It's just people who just share and just are horrible about it. And I had threats. I was like, yeah, the negativity isn't the ghosts or the paranormal. It's the people around it. That's the only problem. But I'll probably do a whole episode talking about the Ouija board, because I did do research into it. And I got so wound up by people saying I clearly didn't do the research into the Ouija board, because I said I'd researched it. They said, well, you clearly haven't, or you wouldn't be using it. Basically, I got really wound up. I made a video called Let's Talk About Ouija Boards, which was the kind of the premise. It's actually the kind of idea that spawned this podcast, was an idea to talk about the paranormal, because there are a lot of paranormal podcasts, usually hosted by people who believe in the paranormal and believe in it, and they just talk about it. And I thought, well, what about let's look at it from a skeptical point of view, which is where my ghost hunts, whenever I've done them on YouTube, are always done through a skeptical point of view. Is a lot of paranormal shows, if nothing interesting happens or anything intriguing happens in a paranormal show, they just don't air it. And I'm like, well, I'm going to air it, because so I do. Every paranormal ghost hunt I go to, I will air everything, even if nothing interesting happens. And I've done a few, and nothing standout really has happened, or something that can't be explained, or anything ridiculous happened. You know, me being in the middle of the woods that are supposedly haunted, terrified at night, is usually the kind of comedy premise that people listen to the podcast to. For many years, I did actually believe in the paranormal until I grew up and got some logic. Stopped believing in imaginary friends. But I will say, talking about paranormal, I do think it's an interesting topic. And let's be honest, if it is real, which I doubt it is, I've not seen any evidence to say it's real. It's a comforting thought. I think that's why people are so dedicated to it, because the paranormal and ghosts and all that, it's a comforting thought, let's be honest. We will also be doing an episode on talking about psychics and mediums, or extra larges. Sorry, that's just a really old joke. But yeah, I'm not a believer in that stuff at all, because I have a background as a magician, so I do know the tricks of the trade that they're using. I'm not a fan of people charging lots and lots of, and I mean extortionate amount of money, to people who've just lost loved ones to talk to them, and they can give very basic and boring facts that, you know, anyone could come up with. You know, I'm going to tell you the first 2 numbers of your phone number. That's your dead relative is telling me this. It's 0 and a 7. Is that how it works? I just want to add, in the UK, that's traditional. It's 07 in the mobile. That's the joke there. I want to add. So that's kind of that's my standpoint on mediums. It just angers me when I hear stories about that, and I hear stories about, people who do that kind of stuff. We won't just be talking about ghosts and stuff and aliens or whatever you want to call it. We'll be talking about other phenomena. So I'm intending on doing an episode on faith healing, which is a genuine thing. I just want to say, I don't want to do this is going to be. I don't want us to be an anti-paranormal, anti-whatever you want to call it, because that's not the point. I don't want it to be negative. I want this to I'm going to give you facts that have been proven. I'm going to throw stuff that, I've done the research, so I'm going to tell you the research that I've done, and show you that. Because if you were to tell them, there are ghost stories I've heard that I can't explain, but at the end of the day, they're stories, and who knows how it's changed in the process of it being told. Unfortunately, the only way I think that you're going to prove to me that ghosts are real is have a dead relative of mine that I know is dead stand up in front of me and introduce themselves. That's the only way I'm going to believe in ghosts, because I can hear stories, I can see videos. Unfortunately, in this day and age, technology, videos can be faked. As much as you say this is fake, I still got, even though nothing happened in some ghost videos, I still get, oh, this is fake. I was like, well, nothing happened. So people are so skeptical, which at ghost hunting videos, which I think is a good thing. You've got to be skeptical about the whole thing. You get a lot of paranormal people who sit there and go, oh, you're so skeptical, you're so cynical, you poo-poo everything. And I went, well, yeah, that's kind of the point. And you hear them go, well, I'm always looking for the evidence. I want to see the evidence first. But no, they hear a noise outside, and they go, oh, it's hear a noise or a knocking, and they go, oh, I don't think it's like the creaking of the floorboards. I hate it when people say it's the creaking of the floorboards. It's not the creaking of the floorboards, when, let's be honest with ourselves, it's the creaking of the floorboards. Because the amount of time, my mother's even told me when she moved into this house, the house we're in now, before I was born, she said that she used to hear footsteps upstairs, and it was just, she knew it was the floorboards, but it used to creep her out. So that's genuinely, that genuinely is a thing, floorboards. I also want to just briefly talk about. I'm probably going to do a whole episode on this, because I'm just fascinated by this. Is the stone tape theory? There's this theory that the walls around us record our surroundings, and in certain environments it records what's going on, and then if the same environment is repeated, like atmosphere, temperature, all that, it's repeated. And that's the explanation for some ghosts. And there is the evidence that they've gone with that is apparently ghosts of Roman soldiers are seen, but only from the waist up. You may be thinking, where's this theory come from? As ludicrous as this sounds, I explained it to a friend of mine who studied science, and he just looked at me like, are you actually kidding? He genuinely thought I was just telling a joke. No, this is genuinely a theory that people use, which is ridiculous. The name came from a film called The Stone Tape, which is apparently based on this theory. My theory is that is actually people have gone, oh, that's a good theory in a film. That could be an actual theory. Let's go with that and stick with that. And that's kind of, yeah. But that's not to say I don't watch paranormal. I'm fascinated with the paranormal. I think it's such an interesting topic. I love watching paranormal shows, because I love how they go, oh, what's that noise? And you go, well, it's just the floorboards. Oh, that door's just shut. Yes, it's shut. Because, oh, it's really, really cold. I went, yeah, because it's nighttime. That's traditional. And usually they're in Britain. It's freezing in Britain, no matter where you are. And that's always been my cynical problem, is they just kind of state the obvious, and you just go, well, no, this means that. It doesn't mean a million. What are you on? Seriously. So that's kind of my standpoint on the paranormal. Talking of the future of this podcast, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the paranormal and what you think. If you've got any stories you want to tell me, or any bit of evidence, or any theories you've heard of that you want to tell me, and I'll happily discuss it, because I want to make this an interactive podcast. I'm only planning on doing maybe five episodes of this podcast. I'm not planning to do this as a long running podcast. I'm only thinking of doing a very minimal few, because I think after a while, I've spoken about majority of the stuff in this podcast that I can think of, and obviously I'm hoping they're going to be a running theme for an episode. Obviously, I think it will go off on tangents and stuff like that and talk about different theories, but I think each episode will have a running theory. Like in the next episode, I'm hoping to talk more about Ouija boards, but I like to have a section where I talk to you and talk to And yeah, so I want to make it interactive. So if you're listening, I don't know where you're listening to this, because I'm still recording this and haven't decided where it's going to be going out. If you're listening to this on Spotify, obviously not. It is out on YouTube. There isn't a video of it, but it's on YouTube because YouTube do podcasts now. And if you comment on that, I will read that. If you're watching this on the listening to this on YouTube, I'll comment and I will read that. Or you can send an email in at contact@harvoentertainment.co.uk and write in Spooky Ooky podcast, and then I will try and read that out for future episodes. But please do, because otherwise it will look very awkward and very, very silly each episode. I'm not planning on making this like a scheduled like weekly thing. I'm going to wait a little while till the next episode because I want to hear your feedback. Let me know what you think of this podcast. Do you want this podcast? This is the pilot episode, should we say? If no one wants it, there won't be any more episodes. But and if we don't get any responses to things, I probably won't make another episode because I thought, well, no one's interested. But I would like to know your thoughts on what your belief in the paranormal. Now, this isn't me saying that people who believe in the paranormal are nutters, by the way. I want to add, I don't want to sound rude to people who do believe in the paranormal at all, because that's just not what I'm here for. I'm here for everyone. I have a philosophy in life, and I've spoken about this before on other podcasts and videos and stuff I've done, that if you're doing anything that's not harming anyone mentally or physically, do what you like. However, there is parts of the paranormal world, like I said earlier about psychics charging lots of money to talk to their dead relatives when all they're doing is something called cold reading, and I do intend to possibly talk about that, but I don't want to go into too much detail because I'm not an expert on cold reading, and I have researched it, and it's mental, ironically. But yeah, so I'm actually going to end the podcast episodes aren't going to be very, very long. In fact, we're nearing the end of this episode of the podcast. So let me know your thoughts. Remember to send in your stories or send in your thoughts and feelings on the paranormal, because I'd like to hear from you in the link, well, not the link in the description below. I'm thinking this is a video. Comment below or send an email to contact@harvoentertainment.co.uk. Thank you so much, and I will see you, or hear you, whatever you want to say, in the next episode of the Spooky Ooky podcast.